Hey, it's Aaron, Metal Theologian. So busting out a little Italian stuff today. We got Wrest. I've actually kind of known about this record for a long time, but I just finally bid on it kind of recently. It's a little bit late. It's like 89. And it doesn't seem to be as highly regarded as some of the other Italian stuff, which is kind of a funny thing to say anyway, because like, I mean, on the one hand, like Italian metal isn't really very highly regarded by anyone, but on the, I mean, like in general, I should say. But on the other hand, among people who do regard it highly, like me, we tend to gravitate towards the shit that makes it weird, which oftentimes has a little bit of an element of suck to it, but just like in just the right way that makes it perfect. And this kind of doesn't have that going for it either, in a way, you know? It's Living in a Cage, Wrest. Not a great name, not a great cover. A song called Psychic TV, which is a little bit interesting. Anyway, finally you decided to give this thing a chance, and it's a pretty damn good record. I mean, I've only listened to it a couple of times so far, so you're not completely, haven't completely digested the thing yet. But it has a lot of these sort of, you know, speed metal moves to it, you know what I mean? Without being sort of full-on thrash either. Like, this is a really fast song, right? And there are a lot of these on here, but I kind of feel like there's, it works in sort of a melodic way, in a way that a lot of these kinds of bands that play at this pace don't. Does that, without actually being like a form of melodic metal. Does that make any sense? I mean, I don't know, maybe that's their like distinctive little, you know, expression of their Italianness there, you know, but it's a cool record. It's not like an immediate face melter either because, you know, the songs are so great or because it's just so fucking weird, like, you know, that Rollerball record or something like that. But it's a cool piece, man. I'm getting, it's been getting some action around here, you know? Yeah, kind of a mix here, actually, because, well, shit, man, let's just go right to it. You know who else I've been listening to a lot lately, man? Fucking Fats Domino. So, some of you may, and some of you may not realize that, here in the Metal Theologian household, Fats Domino gets a lot of action. Actually, I don't listen to him all that often, but I really, really love Fats Domino. Like, when I get on a little kick, I'll listen to a lot. I used to have that 4 CD box set before I got rid of all my CDs. I don't remember what it was titled, but it had like Antoine Fats Domino on the cover, one of those famous pictures of him leaning on the piano. Yeah, I listened to that thing a lot. And then I let go of all my CDs, and I had been listening to Fats for a while, then I was like, you know something? This course sort of seemed like to be the one to grab on record, you know, before that box came out. And I mean, it's a double, and, you know, it has all the hits I know on it. And a lot of stuff that, I don't know, that isn't necessarily hits, but it's still shit that I know from those CDs. So, you know, I've spent a lot of time listening to Fats Domino. Absolutely love that shit, man. Really do. Like, when I got into, when I went on a big hip-hop kick a few months ago, which, by the way, isn't completely over. I mean, this is sitting right here, too. Alright? But, you know, I felt like if I only listened to 90s hip-hop, that it was sort of like only listening to 50s rock and roll. You know what I mean? Because of the amount of time that it had been around relative to when I got into it, you know? And it's about 30 to 40 years in both cases, depending on how you count, you know? So when I started checking out, like, all this newer rap stuff, you know, like from the 2000s and the 10s, and, you know, even, like, new releases coming out now, a lot of this shit just blew me away because I didn't know that people were doing that with that medium, you know? And honestly, I got to a point, you know, given how inclined I am to listen to shit that's, like, kind of weird in some sort of way, but, like, has some kind of song structure to it, you know? I'm almost at a point where I feel like the styles have dovetailed in terms of, like, what the experimental side can do and sort of sounds like, to the point where the only difference between rap and, like, rock is, like, the singing style, you know? I'm not quite there yet. I understand there's all sorts of, like, divergence in the history, but there's a lot of overlap in the history, too. It's, I mean, undeniable, you know? I definitely think that, like, putting, you know, NWA in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame is, like, you know, white liberal boomers stroking themselves. I mean, let's be honest. I don't think it's, like, rock music, you know? Same thing with, like, John Coltrane. Miles Davis, whom I also love dearly, you know what I mean? So I wouldn't go as far as to make any of those kinds of dumb arguments and try to pretend it's actually all the same thing, because it's not. But as a listener, just sort of take this stuff in casually. It's really I don't know, and maybe it's just a phenomenon of when you get to know a style of music, and you listen to it more and more. The more you listen to it, the easier it becomes to listen to more. It might just be that phenomenon too, you know. But with jazz, I still feel like I have to be in a little bit of a different headspace than with hip hop or rock, where I can be in the mood for one and the other will kind of scratch the itch. You know what I mean? Depending on how like far I am in the rabbit hole and shit like that. But that's all just like, you know, I want to say personal taste, but it's not even that. It's just like a matter of how I'm feeling on a given day. Anyway, all this by way of saying, what I was saying was that if you only listen to rap from the 90s, it's like you're listening to rock from the 50s. And it doesn't mean the rap from the 90s isn't great, because a lot of it is. It's just a lot has happened since then. And so, I hereby, as Exhibit A, demonstrate that a lot of that shit from the 50s, okay, is this rock? I don't feel like having that argument. But I fucking love Fats Domino, and he was hugely influential on rock and R&B, and, you know, of various forms and all sorts of stuff. So that old stuff is still good, just because a lot of shit has happened since the old stuff was recorded, you know. So here's another one. I actually busted this one out last time I did a 5 random records, and I didn't really remember what this one sounded like. So I gave Final Prophecy another listen. It's not the greatest thing ever, but it's a pretty solid thrash record, man. It's just good, man. It grabs you, it holds your attention. The songs are cool. Ironically, they do a cover of a Vengeance Rising song on here with Burn. I was like, wait a minute, when I was listening to it, because I didn't remember that was on here. And that's kind of my least favorite song by that band, so... I've joked about this before, but like the whole like burn Satan burn, like that chorus kind of it instills a little bit of discomfort in my inner originist. Okay? So there's a little metal theologian bullshit for you today. So what else do we have going on here? Yeah, so here's what I wanted to talk about a little bit. The next one I'm going to bust out from right here. Speaking of people named Fats, by the way, there's another new arrival. I haven't listened to this one yet, though, so I won't be talking about it. But Fats Navarro is pretty fucking good, too, man. Oh, yeah, so it's funny. This one actually came from Iceland. And, because you just don't see a whole lot of bands from Iceland. I mean, there are only 500,000 people there, you know? It's not a really deep pool. In fact, you know that show Lazy Town? Like, if you're watching this, you're probably too old for Lazy Town, but your kids probably weren't. I actually hated that show. I thought it was annoying as fuck, but I kind of gained a little more sympathy for it. First of all, when I went to it was Icelandic. But second of all, because, like, when they, it was a kid's show, right? So they wanted to have puppets, but there was literally no puppeteer in all of Iceland. So, like, had to come to the States and, like, recruit people, or at least some guy or something like that, because... Yeah, I don't know, man. Iceland's fascinating to me. Anyway. Thrumuvagninn. Which sounds like rumblewag. I suspect it means like tank or something like that. This is kind of a delightfully weird record. It's not that heavy. But it's also kind of early. And it's funny because, like, there are parts of this where it's just, you know, sort of, it just nails it, you know what I mean? Like the very first song in here. And then it sort of goes off into these, like, weird sort of beats that are almost like, disco is a little bit too pejorative a term for it. But, like, it'll just have, like, this sort of, you know, it's like the guitar and the voice will be sort of doing a metal thing, but the bass and the drums will be doing this, like, funky thing. And it's just sort of like, what the hell is going on? So we're going to fire this up for a minute. I don't know how likely you are to see this record around, but this first letter here, the one that's going to make it hard for you to file it, it's actually going to be under TH in my collection, because this is a thorn, that first letter. So that's Thrumuvagninn. Or Vagninn, sorry. Thrumuvagninn. I'll bust it out on the lyric sheet. Yeah, there it's like that. Here's your little Icelandic lesson for the day, okay? So that first letter in that line right there, like the first letter in Thrumuvagninn, it's called a thorn, and it's pronounced like a soft TH. A voiced TH, like in the word the, that we have in English, is it's like a D with an extra little hook, with an extra little line through it. There's an example right there, if you can see that. How's that? Fuck, I'm moving it around now. There you go. So that first word is going to be thaz. I'm not going to sit here and pretend I know Icelandic, but I spent a little bit of time studying it a long time ago, in a previous life when I was like in school and shit. This is pretty rockin', right? It's not like pure like balls out metal, but you know, it's a solid hard rocker, you know? With a little bit of a new wave of British heavy metal feel to it, too. I'm trying to figure out what year this was. It's funny, I'm actually sitting on an ottoman today. It's kind of fucking with my style a little bit. Yeah, this is 82, so it's pretty early for a record to be coming out of Iceland, you know? Or anywhere else, for that matter, let's be honest. Yeah. I'm gonna let this run for a minute, but there's a song on the other side that I want to play because there's like a total like Merciful Metal thing in there. So I hope you're all subscribed to Merciful Metal, by the way. Oh, the other thing I was going to say about the thorn, I've heard this hypothesized. I can't substantiate this because I'm not like a historical linguist or anything like that. But you know the whole like like on shop signs that are supposed to be like old-timey. It'll be like ye old something. Like here in Charleston, there's this place called Ye Old Ice Cream Shop, and shop is spelled SHOPPE and shit like that. Apparently, if you go and do your own research and find out that I'm wrong about this, accept my apologies. But apparently, that whole thing was because this letter, the thorn, which used to exist in Old English, and it is, like in Beowulf English and shit like that, they still use a thorn for a TH sign. So apparently for the, it would have originally been spelled with a thorn, but over time, as that sort of fell into disuse, it sort of mutated into this Y, and we ended up with things saying ye old something shop, when it was really just the old ice cream shop. But now it's ye old just because of this weird sort of linguistic thing, because of how language changed over the course of hundreds of years, which is why I think language is so interesting, right? This is what I was talking about. Like this kind of rocks, there's a guitar doing the thing. It's like they're rocking right here, but there's some fucking like funky shit going on in that bass second. Let's see it come back. Alright, let me make sure I have the right lyric sheet in here. It's kind of a stupid cover, by the way, like that whole thing with I get it, but I don't know, it feels kind of low effort after they put all this effort into getting the runes right and shit, more or less. There. What the fuck are they doing? You know what I'm saying? But like that bass player, what band was he in? It's not like it's not like he sat in from like Rick James's band or something like that. Because they were fucking Iceland. They're probably, I don't know. I was gonna make a joke about how few bass players there probably are in Iceland, but it seems like pretty much half of the population of Norway has to be like an amazing drummer, or just amazing drummers, given how many bands have come out of Norway with amazing drummers. So I probably won't make that joke because I don't think it'll land. Yeah, it's kind of a fun record. When I first put this on, I kind of like, what the fuck? And I was just like, I think I get what this is about. So speaking of covers, though, that aren't necessarily all that great, I was thinking about this. A lot of the times on my channel, I was actually texting about this with Scott Waters earlier. Hope you're all subscribed to Scott Waters. Eric Bauer just uploaded, too, and he doesn't do that often, so that's a special treat. Y'all have subscribed to Eric Bauer at High Defamation TV. So there are a couple things here. Like, here's another one I've been listening to, okay? Portuguese one. It's funny because this one's actually from Portugal as opposed to Brazil. There are a few people that live in... I think there are about 10 million people in Portugal. It's a fraction of what's in Brazil, right? Anyway, I assume they're called checkmates. I have no idea how to pronounce Portuguese, really. But look at that art. Like, it's kind of shitty. And when I was texting about with Scott earlier in the context of a different record was, you know, if a record cover is bad, it's going to be harder for me to resist than if it's good, you know? And I don't necessarily mean bad in, like, design or execution or even, like, bad per se, but just, like, that's an example. And then here's another fucking example. By the way, Checkmate has a really cool sort of new album vibe, too. Not the greatest record of all time, but a very fun one, you know what I mean? This is one that you can sort of put on and take in, and, I think it's later than 82, but it, like I said, it has sort of a new wave of British heavy metal vibe to it a little bit. That sort of like lo-fi-ness. I'm going to put on the first song on side 2 on this one because this is for Thomas over at Merciful Metal. Xeque altsem synist, I think. But there's this weird thing with the synth, which you don't even hear on most of the record, but like, they're like these synth accents, like in the chorus and shit. That just seem like, what were they thinking putting that there? Which, of course, is the sort of thing I love. So, like, this is another one, too. This is another favorite record. Kind of a corny record. I do recommend this, but with serious qualifications, because it's really pretty corny. But I love every song on it. By the French band Mistreated, Première Intervention. Anyway, here's the thing. Yeah, I like covers like this because I like to laugh, because I think this shit's funny, okay? You know, it's like you had this idea, and clearly there's a little bit of a disconnect between the concept and the execution, right? What the fuck? You hear that? What's that synth doing there? Anyway, the thing about a record with a cover like this, and the reason I would rather buy a record that looks like this than... I don't know, let me find something that looks professional here. Fuck if I even have anything, right? Alright, let's take this one. Well, that's not really that good an example. Shit, man. All my records have shitty covers. Okay, one like this. No, that's not a good example either. Okay, one like this. Shit. There's one right in front of me, okay? This is pretty competently executed, you know what I mean? This isn't really a bad record cover. I can fault it because I don't think it was the greatest idea for a record cover, and I will. But it didn't stop me from buying it to check it out, right? So here we are, you know? But a record like that, or, you know, even one like this. This is the other one I was thinking of before. You can crack wise a little bit about, you know, the shape of the skull and that, but there's, like, some, like, composition and that sort of thing here. God, I wish I had a better example, like a really good cover. The point is that when a cover is a little bit shitty, it indicates a level of sincerity that I really value in a record. You know what I mean? Okay, here are a couple. So here we go. That's a very good record cover, okay? Maybe I can look really closely and sort of nitpick at how, like, the castle is painted in there. But the fact is, that's a good cover. That's pretty cool. It's effective. It creates an atmosphere. That's a good record, too, Adramouth. I'm not talking any shit about it, you know? This one right here is by Gargoyle. Another one I'm not going to talk any shit about today. I've been listening to this and enjoying it. You know, again, the shit you could nitpick, but the bottom line is they have, like, their logo and these lights coming out of it or shooting through it or whatever it's supposed to be doing. And, you know, it's pretty competently done. You know what I mean? Like, when you see a record like that, it doesn't necessarily suck, right? But when you see a cover that looks like this, you know they weren't leaving anything on the table. They were going for it. You know what I mean? They're like everything they had was going into this record. You know, and if they came up a little bit short because they didn't quite have the level of skill that the bands they were listening to probably had, they weren't going to be daunted by that. So this is like the philosophical reason why like I sit here and spend so much time talking about shitty record covers. And I've said before, I'm celebrating these bands at the same time as I'm making fun of them. If I don't like a band, I'll fucking tell you. And I'll also tell you if I think a band kind of sucks, but I like them anyway. You know what I mean? But this is a cool record by a cool band. And it just has that extra little bit of something, because they were giving it everything that they had. I just love that shit, man. Alright, here's another one. Speaking of things that are shitty, it's funny because this one is like, it's kind of lame. Because, they kind of didn't even try. This is a band called Asylum. See that? They have like a shiny shit on the cover there, like that foil of that. But look at that fucking logo. How weak is that logo? And something? It's even weaker than you think because it opens on the wrong fucking side. So this is actually the front. If you're like pulling it out and taking it out, this is the back and the front is this shit. I mean, that was probably a printer fuck up. And I don't absolve the band entirely because the band is, depending on how you send your shit to the printer or whatever, you can totally create a printer fuck up. Okay. Not that I'm blaming anyone either here, but hey, here, watch this. See this? Pulling the record out. And the back cover is like, I don't know, man. I don't know what the fuck they were thinking. I'm pretty confident it's just like a fuck up at the print shop. That's what it looks like. Anyway, this record's okay. It's not really incredible. It's good though. This is sort of band that I think of when I say that I don't like Van Halen, but I like a lot of bands that sound like they were Van Halen fans. These guys sound like they were Van Halen fans. And it's not great, but it's kind of a fun record to put on when you're doing the dishes or whatever. I don't know if I've ever heard anyone talk about Asylum before, so I figured I might as well bring them up. Fucking front cover, man. They even did the paste job right, I mean, this is really the front cover, upside down. But I think I'm gonna file it like this. Alright, so here's the other thing. Shout out to Melanie Loves Death Metal, who I hope will also be showing jazz records soon, too. I've been listening to a fair bit of jazz here and there. And you know who I went on a kick for? Of all bands? It's fucking this guy, man. Fucking Dave Brubeck. This is one of my favorite Brubecks. Jazz impressions of Japan. And I pulled out this one, too. Partially to educate my kid, but partially just because I like it, As many car commercials as Take 5 maybe may have been in, it's still a great tune, man. And this is a really, it's a really bold record because of what it does with the time signatures and sort of just approaching the music from that kind of an angle. But it's so smooth and so cool that you can listen to it without knowing the first thing about it and just sort of dig it, you know what I mean? You realize that if you're tapping your foot at interval, it's a little bit weird, but that's the extent of it, So yeah, I actually like Dave Brubeck. And the thing about Dave Brubeck is I kind of thought he was a wiener. I didn't have a whole lot of use for him. It was Cecil Taylor who got me interested in Dave Brubeck again. Because I think I had 4 Lives in the Bebop business or something like that. Cecil had actually turned on Brubeck by then. He kind of thought it was full of shit. But apparently one of his early influences when he was first starting to get interested in that shit was Dave Brubeck. And I was like, well, I don't care what he thinks now. The fact that this guy had any influence on Cecil Taylor at all, it's like, that's a pretty big leap. I'm like, shit, man, maybe I've been listening to Brubeck wrong, So I've come around on the guy in a pretty big way. If I'm going to recommend one where you don't want to know all the songs, this is probably the one, Jazz Impressions of Japan. It's a really cool record. I actually put these away while I'm done because it's right there. How convenient is that shit? Alright, here's one last one that I'm gonna hype, but I think we're getting close to being done. Another one with a nice and shitty cover, because look at how those guys are just like hanging out on that thing. Like you can tell it's like pre-Photoshop. And it's even better than you think, because these guys are from Romania. And I have records with a few Romanian bands. Not a lot, a few Romanian bands. And this one, even though it's probably the least heavy, is probably my favorite, man. Conexiuni. Anyway, I think you get the idea about Rock Asylum. If you can handle that, you can handle Rock Asylum just fine, you know. I'd say don't spend too much for it. There's some guy on Discogs who wants like $500 for a copy, I think. You know, don't be an idiot. In a way, I don't blame the guy for asking it. You know, if you're willing to pay that for it, and you have that kind of money burning a hole in your pocket, you know, you can both go with God, I guess. But it doesn't seem like the best investment to me. Even though I like this record just fine, you know. Fucking Rock Asylum, man. All right, we're gonna check out Conexiuni for a minute here. Yeah, this is not the heaviest thing around. God damn it. Let's put a different inner in here, because this one always sticks. The cover's like a little bit small. Check out this label too, man. It looks so like Eastern Bloc. Look at that shit. I don't know how your Romanian is. I'll give this a minute, though. This record's really cheap, by the way. You probably have to get it from Romania. You're not likely to find an American dealer who has this in stock, or even a German dealer necessarily, or maybe a Greek one, but probably not. But other than the shipping from Romania, this record's like a $10 record or something. Pretty decent riff, isn't it? It's not really a wailer. It's not Ian Gillan on the vocals there. Speaking of which, I've been listening to this one too. I really like the Gillan band. It's funny because the Ian Gillan band, like right after he left Deep Purple, I only have one of the two records, Scarabus, but it's total crap, man. But then just as Gillan, this band was pretty good, you know? If you have a choice in getting this and the Sabbath album, Born Again, with him on it, get Born Again, because that's even better. But this is a really good record. This might even be my favorite of the Gillan catalog, but I'm not sure about that. I'll report back on that at some point. What a cool cover, too, right? It's funny, because this is like drawn and shit, too, but it just seems more competently designed, you know what I mean? So it doesn't quite meet that criterion, you know, the whole, the shittiness criterion, which will make me have to sort of automatically buy a record. I mean, this is pretty good, isn't it? And it rocks. And it's tuneful, you know? Yeah, and fucking Conexiuni. Real quick, my last video, someone in my comments section was asking if I knew this band's Portuguese band, except these guys are actually Brazilian. Yeah. Alta Tensão, or something like that. He's actually on this reissue label called Since 72, which is funny. I've lost touch, but I'm friendly with this dude who started a noise label called Since 1972. So I thought it was funny that, like, it could have been Since 73 or something, or 68 or something, but no, this one's 72 as well, so. See, and this cover, too, is almost, like, not shitty enough. I mean, you know, yeah, there's some of that. But that art really isn't any worse than, like, you know, some of the Thundercats episodes that they spat out faster, you know? So, it's a really cool record. And sort of unusually for a Brazilian band, it's not like a thrashy and, like, I'm going to say intense. It has its own kind of intensity, but it's not that sort of, like, you know, just speed like, you know, kicking you in the ass kind of intensity. It's more like a standard, heavy metal, classic metal sound. If you want to hear something from Brazil and you like Iron Maiden, but you don't like Sarcophago, you probably dig these guys. Alright, well, that's pretty much what I've got for today, man. Coming up on time here. As always, thanks for watching. I hope I showed enough records. I feel like I normally kind of show a lot of records per video, but the philosophy kind of got away from me a little bit. Because I think about these things, Like, I can't just listen to records. I have to, like, form theories about the records that I listen to. So, which is probably why I do this bullshit for coming up on 11 years. Anyway, thanks for watching. I always appreciate it. Take care.